Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Across the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome to it. It is the Michael Dukes Show, hour 2 of the big radio broadcast, and we are ready to hour 1 of the big radio broadcast. And we are ready to dive down into it for Thursday, where we have a lot of stuff to cover today and just a little bit of time to do it. So, hi, how are you? You ready to get into it? You ready to be part of the program today? I know I am. We got a big show lined up for you today. We are going to be going over some headlines here in hour 1. We're going to be talking about, all the things that are fit to print, including a discussion on the latest for the defined benefits program. We knew this was coming. We knew that something was in the works, and it popped out last night, or yesterday rather, for us to go over and discuss. We're also going to talk about a new bill in the House that would mandate what they are calling science-based sex education. And let me just say that I would rather again be homeschooling my children one more time than have to deal with a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in that realm of possibility. All right, so that's kind of a rundown for today to begin with, and we're going to then in hour 2 take it up with Representative Ben Carpenter. Ben Carpenter, who is the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, who has been tasked with trying to develop a long-term fiscal solution for the state of Alaska. And we're going to talk with him in hour 2, and we're going to get a full rundown from him on all the things that are going on around the state, and what his plan is, what the plan is of the Ways and Means Committee and the majority to try and fix the fiscal morass that we find ourselves in as of right now. So that's kind of how things are ready to roll this morning. I don't know. I had the phone lines open yesterday and basically nobody called, but I guess I will open up the phone lines again for this morning, for hour 1, so that if there's something that you want to chat about, or something that I'm commenting on that you want to sound off on, I guess we'll get that squared away, and we'll get the phone lines open so that you can participate as well. Why not? I mean, it's a crapshoot. We'll see if you guys want to participate this morning. We'll let that go. Phone number to call, of course, is 907-433-3150. 907-433-3150. It's powered by our friends over there at Satellite West. They, of course, sponsor the program every morning. SatelliteWest.com, from Willow to Wasilla, from Menchumina to Metlakatla, from Ukhtavik to Uzinki. I mean, wherever you want to go, they have the connectivity that you need to stay in touch, whether it's through telephone calls or text messages, emails, or maybe just surfing the net. They've got the tools and the talent to make it happen. So go check them out at satellitewest.com. Make sure you say thank you for sponsoring the program each and every day. Special thanks again to Satellite West at satellitewest.com. So phone lines are now open and active and ready to go if you want to sound off on anything. I'm trying to decide where I want to start this morning. Thinking first and foremost, let's kind of get this out of the way, and we'll get started. A bill has been introduced in the Alaska Senate that would mandate age-appropriate, science-based sex education in Alaska public schools. Senate Bill 43 is sponsored by Senator L.V. Gray Jackson, co-sponsored by Senator Loki Gale She-Her Tobin, and Senator Forrest Run Dunbar. The bill will be discussed in the Senate Education Committee. It was discussed yesterday at 3 p.m. They invited a bunch of different speakers, including a doctor from the Ketchimak Bay Family Planning Clinic, an education manager, and then 2 teen council members from Anchorage who were part of a peer-led sex ed advocacy group. Yes. The bill doesn't call it sex education, by the way, but it refers to it as personal safety. It also mandates drug and alcohol education from kids from kindergarten through 12th grade, and says the instructions must include a variety of topics, including eluding sexual abuse, cancer detection, dental health, infant care, and more. Now, it used to be that in the requirements that the school district was encouraged to initiate and conduct a program in health education for kindergartens through 12th grade, but they've changed that now. It's no longer just encouraged or suggested. It is now, according to this bill, required to do so. The state public school system shall provide a program in health and personal safety. The program for education K through 12. The program must include instruction in physical health and personal safety, including alcohol, drug abuse education, CPR, early cancer prevention and detection, dental health, family health, including infant care, environmental health, and the identification and prevention of child abuse, child abduction, sexual abuse, domestic health, and appropriate use of health services and sexual health. It's added at the end. The state board shall establish guidelines for the health and personal safety education program required under A of this section, which is what I just read you was section A. And then it continues to go on and talk about the different health and safety guidelines and all this other kind of stuff. Further in the bill, it says that the science used to inform the curriculum should come from accepted sources, and that peer-reviewed journals are an accepted form of science along with the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The bill specifically says the American Academy of Pediatrics is a credible scientific group. Of course, the AAP has come out in favor of reshaping children's identity through gender reassignment, hormones, and surgery as necessary. I mean, this is just great stuff. And they go through this whole thing with it. So this is coming out. I mean, quite honestly, all I had to do is look at the plethora of sponsors of this bill and realize that I needed to look at it with a very jaundiced eye to begin with. Because generally speaking, in my own personal philosophy, there's not much that these 3 senators have talked about that I would be in favor of. So it immediately made me look at this with a jaundiced eye. Then when it went from encouraged and suggested to initiate to they shall provide. It is a mandatory thing. As soon as it went from that to that, I immediately started to go, no. And then, of course, mandating and specifically mentioning the American Academy of Pediatrics. That's when I was like, okay, so this is again trying to force this whole idea of children being not young enough to vote, to smoke, to fight in wars, to do anything else, but damn, they're sure young enough to figure out what gender they want to be for the rest of their life, other than their own. I mean, that was just like, I've never understood that. Look, whatever you want to do as an adult, I mean, I don't care. I mean, I really, it does not affect me. And so I know some of you are going to be just shocked and, by that. But hey, if somebody wants to live as another gender, good, whatever, more power to them. If that's what you feel is good. I mean, we could cite study after study and case after case where there's been many people who have, who have regretted those decisions. There's a tremendous amount of problems with suicide among that whole sect and everything else. We could point out all the problems, but you're an adult. You can, you decide. But when you've got these young children who are already just learning and confused and don't know anything about life, and you're basically conditioning them on these topics from a very young age, when they are highly susceptible to suggestion from outside influences, especially influences that parents have been themselves conditioned to tell you, oh, they're the authority figures, honey. You've got to listen to them. You've got to listen to your teacher. When you see that, I find that repulsive. Again, if you want to live your life in a certain way, far be it from me to make that decision for you. And again, I know some of you will have a hard time with that because I don't care. Again, if it doesn't affect me, if you're not making me pay for it, if you're not forcing it into my face every 5 minutes, I'm a live and let live kind of guy. Do what you want to do. But when you focus this stuff down on kids, again, who are so highly susceptible to influence, especially from figures of authority, and you start confusing their little, what did Limbaugh call it, the minds full of mush or whatever, when you start suscepting them to these kind of suggestions and ideas and, maybe Bobby just doesn't feel right in his body or, all this other kind of stuff, it's sick. It really is. They have a hard enough time going through everything else. You've still got to go through your teen transformative years and puberty and all this other kind of things before you are right in the head, right? Before you're really comfortable. And I know nobody's comfortable in their own skin anymore because everybody's got body issues and all these other kinds of stuff and peer pressure and social media. But for God's sake, let them at least become, young adults before you start throwing this kind of stuff at them because they're confused enough about everything already. It's so disturbing. So disturbing. That's the problem. But I look at this and I watch this and I'm just thinking, well, if this is a state mandate, how is this going to affect like my final kid who's still in the homeschool? It's a program that's funded by the state. So what are they going to, what am I going to see there? Am I going to see more of this nonsense there? Am I going to see, I just pray at this point that this doesn't go anywhere. Plus, I will make a note that when they formed this majority coalition in the Senate, it was said by several people, it was quoted to me as saying, well, they're going to steer away from any kind of highly contentious, social legislation this year. So I guess that held out for just the right amount of time, huh? This is not going to be contentious at all, I'm sure. But that's, yeah. I'm just so discouraged by when I see stuff like this, that this is kind of where we're at today. And it makes me want to crawl into a cave and just shut the world out away from me. When you're doing, where you're kind of encouraging and demanding this kind of stuff be fed, to the minds of children. It's just so problematic. Okay, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we'll continue this discussion. You feel free to sound off. If you think I'm out of line, feel free to call me and tell me why. Tell me why this is kind of justified. Again, we've got programs already. We're already got things going on. It's just a suggestion, but now we need to have a forced mandate from the state down telling all these local communities what they should do. I mean, they want to push back on this stuff, right? That's all I hear about from defined benefits and all this other stuff is they want the local control. This is mandated from the state downward. So tell me what you think. 907-433-3150. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we got one line on hold. One line on hold this morning already, so I guess we'll go over there real quick and get their names so that when we return and rejoin the radio, we will know who we're talking to. How about that? We'll start over here. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Hello.
Hey, good morning, Michael. David Boyle calling from Anchorage.
Oh, hey, David. Okay, hold the line, David. I'll be right back. I'll be right back to you, and we'll start off with you. You'll be number one in the queue when we get back, so don't go anywhere. All right. So David Boyle, one of our education advocates, is on the phone, continuing on here as well. Okay. What do you got going on here? Let me go backwards. Meet national spokesperson for Convention of the States today, 6 p.m. at the Patrons Kitchen in Kenai, says Christine. The national spokesman for the Convention of the States, 6 p.m., Patrons Kitchen. You're on the right track. More coffee will help. Science-based sex education, you mean you're either born a male or a female? When you hear that, I think many people are like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because to them, that's what science-based. No, because they're using that again as smokescreen, trying to capture the language and kind of camouflage the whole thing when they bring the AAP in there, who of course are advocating for gender reassignment surgery on children. Whoa. Mm-hmm. All right. None dared interrupt your epic rants yesterday. Yesterday was a ranting day. This whole week has kind of been ranty. I've been on a, yeah. Did you say mandate? I did say mandate. Must Read Alaska's got let me post the Must Read Alaska article in here because that's what I was quoting from, was the Must Read Alaska article, where she actually has pictures or she has the bill language in there, and you could see what's been removed and what hasn't. Anytime you're looking at this, anything that's in bold and underlined has been added, and anything in the two brackets is what's being removed. So it used to say each district in the state public school system shall be encouraged to initiate and conduct a program in health education for kindergarten through grade 12. Now it reads, every district in the state public school systems shall provide a program in health and personal safety education for kindergarten through grade 12. You can go through this and just read and they added sexual health. They added that it's now required under the section, so required now by state law. It goes down into the next section and talks about what is medically and scientifically accurate information. I mean, Yeah, it's just depressing. CDC, that said that, huh? Yeah, I know exactly. They said that. They said the CDC is this. Yeah. They put that through, says Sandy, and homeschool programs are going to get another influx of students unless they're mandating the same thing inside the homeschooling system because it is part of a school district. I guess it just depends on how it's, I guess it just depends on how it's laid out. But it's astonishing. They are highly susceptible. That's why they're doing it at such a young age, says Sandy. Children, said Armed and AK, should not be making adult decisions. That's what you don't allow them to make anything else. You don't allow them to choose what they're having for breakfast when they're that age. You help them dress. You do all that kind of stuff. You're not going to, I'm sorry, Johnny, you can't stay up past your bedtime, but you can decide whether or not you're a boy or a girl. Yeah. Okay. We're jumping back into it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like and share. Okay, we're continuing now. Ready to rumble. We're ready to jump back into it. Continuing our discussions. Plus, we're taking some phone calls. We did get one call here on hold. On the line with us is David Boyle, who is a well-known education advocate down in Anchorage. He talks a lot about school issues. He was formerly with the Alaska Policy Forum. He comes on board right now to talk with us and give us his thoughts on this. David, what are you thinking right now?
Hey, good morning, Michael. You're breaking up a little bit. I hope I'm not breaking up.
No, you're sounding.
You brought this
Go ahead.
Conversation on this bill.
Go ahead, David.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Okay. Go ahead.
Senator L.V. Gray Jackson, that's the sponsor of this bill to sexualize the kids kindergarten through 12th grade, she should really be ashamed of herself. It appears as if she supports the government being making your children wards of the state government. And that's despicable. This is about parental rights. And this provides cover for what is going on already in the Alaska schools, particularly in the Anchorage school districts that I'm very familiar with. It's going to legalize and legitimize pornographic materials in the schools, gender identity, sexualization of children as young as 5 years old. And as you very astutely said, it's actually a camouflaged bill. And if you don't read the bill very closely or go through the whole thing, you won't know what's going on in this bill until you get towards the last few paragraphs of the bill about sex education. And one of the peer-reviewed articles and organizations is American Academy of Pediatrics, which has 72,000 members. If you go to their page, you'll find and put in the search bar gender identity, you will be amazed and probably disgusted about everything they stand for. Gender dysphoria, in talking about it needs to be put into the curriculum in the schools. And another thing that I'm familiar with is the American Academy of Pediatrics believes if a child, quote, would like to transition to a different gender, it needs to be kept secret from the parents.
Right.
And by the way, I say that children's medical records or healthcare records should not be available to the parents after the child reaches the age of 12. I'm familiar with this because my grandson, whose father's in the Air Force, the base pediatrician told them they would not be able to see their son's healthcare records once he reached the age of 12. And that has been confirmed through another base, actually the Elmendorf Air Force base. That's so why you can't see your child. However, the entire healthcare community has access to them. I mean,
that's insane.
This is a culture war across.
Yeah, no, David, that's absolutely insane. That somehow you're a parent, you're responsible for these kids essentially until they're 18, and yet you can't see their healthcare records beyond the age of 12. And yes, I have heard of schools who are encouraging kids to transition while keeping it secret from the parents and everything else. I mean, that's insanity. Why would you want to send your kids to some kind of school like that where they would hide the growth or changes or challenges from them?
You don't know whether they're, let's say a parent is, not close to their children or whatever. You don't know if they're on drugs, but the healthcare community knows that. You don't know if they're sexually active or have sex diseases, but the healthcare community, the clerk in the office knows that. The receptionist knows that. They're not supposed to know that, but they also can see those records, and they know when the child comes in.
Yeah.
So it's all about removing the child from the parents. That's the bottom line. That's what's going on.
Are you saying that this is already going on in Anchorage, David? You're saying that these kind of programs are already being promulgated in Anchorage, and this is just kind of the political cover for it?
Yes, exactly right. They're giving the education industry the political and legal cover, which they do not have today. Because what they're doing in the schools today, it's not legally they're not allowed to do that, and parents could be filing lawsuits from the parents. That's against the law as far as I'm concerned. Now it may not, and I think a jury would say the same thing. But all of this comes from association, the teachers union. They have a 10-page document on how to put transgenderism in schools.
Right.
And that's the one, for example, that the Anchorage School District has used. And that form that's on there, there's a signature for gender transition, pronouns, etc., that is only signed by the principal and the student. The parent's signature block is nowhere on that document.
Right. Well, I'd love to have a fuller discussion with about this in the future, because I think this is highly dangerous, and I'm seriously concerned about this coming into, continuing to be pushed in the schools. And I'm seriously concerned about this bill giving them the political cover to do so. David, thank you for your call this morning. I appreciate it. Maybe we should work something out to have a further discussion on this. I appreciate you coming on board. Hopefully, the next connection here is going to be a little smoother, folks. I'm sorry about that. There's some choppiness on the phone. Let's go over here and take the next call. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Michael. It's Representative Calvin Schrage. How are you?
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Michael, I'm having the same problem the last caller did. You're coming through very choppy on the phone line.
Okay, I'll tell you what. I'm going to shut the phones down, and you can call back, and we'll see if that helps the situation here, because it should not be choppy. But it is the internet, so that's how voice over IP. That's how some of this stuff works. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kill the phone systems, and we'll start again here, and I'll give you a chance to call back in here in just a moment. If you'd like to call in, 907-433-3150, 433-3150 is the phone number. And you can feel free to come on board and join us and talk with us about all the stuff that we want to talk about. I'm just getting things resituated here. And see if I can get the phones to cooperate this morning, because man, that's all we needed to All we needed is a hang up here on the phone lines. Again, 907-433-3150. Let's try this again. We'll go over here to the phones and see if this is still Representative Schrage. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Well, I guess it's just one of those days because it's still no better. Is there a different option to call in?
Yeah. I mean, what we should do is you and I should, because I have some other things to go through this morning. I hadn't heard from you, and I wasn't sure if you were going to appear. If you could just drop me an email, and I will schedule you for a full 40 minutes all by yourself on a hardline connection, and we can go from that. If you'd send me an email at me@michaeldukeshow.com, we could do this maybe on Monday morning and kind of go over everything that we should talk about. And that way I can give you the hotline number that we usually do it via video interview anyway. So if you want to drop me an email with your phone number or whatever, we can call and work out the details.
I'll do that. Well, while I'm here, I'll just say good morning, and good morning to Harold. He's a constituent of mine, and I know a frequent watcher of your show. So just good morning, and sorry this doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I'll shoot you an email here soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, I apologize. I don't sometimes there's just ghosts in the machine. Sometimes the gremlins get you, and you can't do anything about it. It's the speed of the internet. I still haven't set up my new Starlink yet, which is one of my projects that I have going on. I was kind of waiting for the snow to melt a little bit more, not get more snow before I put it up on my roof and did all that kind of stuff. So thank you for calling in. I appreciate it. I guess that means I'm going to kill the phones because they're obviously not, they're not performing well enough today. I don't know if it's GCI or what, but we'll nuke the phones. We've got Ben Carpenter coming up at the top of the hour anyway. This will give me a chance to introduce the next, or tease at least, I guess, the next segment, which is where we're going to talk about the brand new Senate Bill 88, which is a new defined benefits program, or as Kathy Giesel says, not your grandma's defined benefits. They're trying to say that this is the way. That's what they're trying to say. This is the way. Now, they have cut some things out of it, which I think make it for at least an interesting discussion. I am still very concerned about defined benefits overrunning the resources in the state of Alaska in the long run. But they have cut out some of the bigger cost centers of defined benefits, including offering medical and health care beyond retirement age and everything else. So it's an interesting discussion. I am still not convinced that this is going to be a better way to do things. And there's a couple comments in this, a couple hot quotes out of this article that I think kind of point the way to what really is going on. And I guess we'll chat about that here in just a few minutes. We'll get things going. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. We'll return with your phone calls, or we'll return with my commentary, not your phone calls. That's what I was trying to say. Right after this.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, we are in the break. I've got to send a text message back to somebody else here. Okay. All right. So we're good to go. We got all that thing. Ben Carpenter's got the thing. I don't know. My internet. I've got the fastest internet that's available in the state here in the studio. And I have had some of the funkiest problems over the last 6 months. And I don't know. I've had some weird problems too. All you techno guys out there who are a little techno geeky like me, I've also my network adapter has been. The other day I was doing something and I watched the network adapter recycle and reset itself like 5 times in a period of about 3 minutes. So this motherboard on this computer is about 7 years old. I'm thinking that it's probably ready to give up the ghost. It's probably ready to give up the ghost. I do have all new parts to build another computer to stream because I'm using 2 computers already, but one of them is older and that's kind of the workhorse. But I mean, it's going to be a whole weekend worth of work to tear everything out, put everything together, tear it all down, reload all the software. It's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. So I don't know if it is GCI or if it's on my end, but whatever it is, problematic to say the least. Problematic and frustrating. Okay. Going back up here. They're claiming that brainwashing children is an education. Meanwhile, kids can't do math in their heads or write in cursive or read at their grade level or whatever it is. Status of SB 43 after hearing by Senate Education between 3:30 and 5 p.m. yesterday. Did they vote to move it forward? It did not get voted to move forward, I think is what David says later on. Did not go forward yet. It was held in committee. Next hearing is Monday, March 6th in Senate Education. All right. My billings lady, do we say about the hidden healthcare records? F that. Yeah, no, I mean, really, if you told me that I couldn't see my child's healthcare records, I'd immediately pull you out and put somebody else in there. Yeah. Guarantee if a charter school opened up and focused on normal education, people do their best to help it succeed. I don't have healthcare benefits when I retired. It comes out of my pocket. If it's good enough for me, it's good enough for thee. Oh, I mean, there's a whole slew of problems with that. That's just one of them. Any defined benefit program will attract long-term, low-performance employees. Stop the baloney and pay teachers what they're worth. They're all underpaid by at least 30 to 40%. Pay them what they're worth. Give them a defined contribution, and you have a teacher to flying to Alaska like geese in summertime. Time to break out the Starlink. Yeah, no, I agree, Rob. That's what I should be doing is to break out the Starlink. What did I do? I blew the light behind me. Did I screw something up? There we go. That's better. I like that contrast better. GCI isn't the best. Get fiber. If I could get fiber here, that's what I'd be on. If I could get fiber here, that's what I would be on. I'm on the best 2 gig whatever that I can get. No, it's the internet. We have state-of-the-art computer network and it's GCI. Yeah, I mean it's just so disappointing sometimes, the latency and the lag and the up and down. Teaching pods were a thing during the pandemic. Family hired teachers. Internet seemed good. It's the phone calls. Well, yeah, internet seems good. It's the phone calls. The phones are run. It's a voice over IP. My phone number is a VoIP phone number. So it runs over the internet. So it's a phone call, but it is not he said that my side was also crackly, which means that this is not a phone. This is a microphone, and it runs right through the VoIP back to him. So that's what I was saying. Starlink is still problematic, says Willie. 2nd generation birds are going up. And that's what I'm thinking. That's my problem. I haven't put up the Starlink 1 because there's still a bunch of snow and I didn't want to set it up and do all that stuff. Second of all, I was waiting for more satellites to get in orbit because they're still saying that it's dropping, that it'll drop for 10 or 15 seconds at a time. And that's not good when you're trying to do live radio, right? That's the thing. It's not good when, when it's live radio. No chats available, Jim? ? I don't know what you mean, Jim. What is no chats available? I have no idea what that means. GCI soaked the districts for millions. It's good to hear someone mention Starlink. You may need multiple Starlinks, but as the constellation is completed, Starlink will be the go-to provider. Yeah, I mean, that's what I did. I was an early adopter. I paid for the unit like 3 years ago because I wanted to be independent from GCI on this. Here we go. Jumping back in. All right. Welcome back to the program. The Michael Duke Show continues. We got Representative Ben Carpenter going to be joining us here right after the top of the hour. And we're going to be kicking things off with him here in a minute. But I have one more story to go over. And that is the discussion about Senate Bill 88. Senate Bill 88, which is the new plan that has been introduced and sponsored by Senator Kathy Giessel. It would revamp the public retirement system in the state government. It would create a new pension plan that would promise state workers predictable payments upon retirement. Now, it's a departure from the retirement plan adopted in 2006, which allows workers to contribute each month to a retirement account, but makes the amount of money available to them upon retirement depend on the success of their investment strategy, which ironically sounds a lot like what the rest of us have, right? The rest of us have a defined contribution plan where we define what we're going to contribute, and we, hope that our 401ks, our investments, our whatever, do well enough to, support us in our old age. That's the goal. Labor groups have said that retirement, that the defined benefits retirement plan is a key factor causing working age Alaskans to leave the state and stopping workers from moving to Alaska. A new analysis presented in February by the board managing the public retirement accounts, which is the public, it's the ARM board. That's what it is, right? Retirement Management Board, Alaska Retirement Management Board. The new analysis presented in February by the board managing public retirement accounts found that most public employees covered by that plan do not have enough savings for retirement because you're not contributing enough. I mean, this is the same. This is what kills me. This is what absolutely kills me about this. We have to do the same math when we look at these things and say, how much are we putting away for retirement? How much are we putting away for retirement? We have to look at that ourselves when we're out here in the big bad world in the private sector. We have to decide, are we putting enough away so that you constantly have to, and as you get closer to retirement age, you should be checking it more frequently. But they say, well, this is most public employees covered by that plan do not have enough savings for retirement. Well, then they're not contributing enough. I mean, does the state, is this mandate that the state has to do it for them? Does mommy need to hold your hand? Does mommy need to give you a cookie to make sure that you're, I'm not trying to be mean to the state employee. I'm just saying this kind of argument makes me think that. What, we have to have, it has to be nanny stated? They can't plan for their own retirement? Are you saying that these people don't have the wherewithal to plan for a retirement? Well, we should just give them whatever money they need because that'll keep them here. What? Members of the bipartisan Senate majority, according to the ADN, say that the 2006 move from what is called a defined benefits pension plan to a 401k style defined contributions plan has contributed to difficulties in recruiting all manner of state workers, including teachers, bus drivers, attorneys, administrators, biologists, prison guards, police officers, firefighters, and heavy equipment operators. The problem is that defined benefits programs across the United States have been going away because they are unsustainable. In fact, several of the largest defined benefits programs for private industries had to be bailed out by the federal government because they were so upside down, they would have destroyed the companies. I'm talking like Delta Airlines and General Motors. They both had to be bailed out of defined benefits programs. So, is it really that? Is it really, it used to be that when, back in the day when dirt was new and they were creating these plans and packages for public employees where they got, they had these really, really Cadillac kind of gold-plated benefits packages in retirements and health cares and things like that. They used to justify that by saying, well, the reason that they're getting this is because they are getting a lower salary or standard wage as opposed to those people in the private sector. They're getting a much lower wage. And what we've seen, of course, over the intervening years is that wage has now crept up in many cases, not all. I mean, there's some professions, there's some attorneys, and there's some different sections out there where you can make more money in the private sector. But for the most part, the majority of it, they are making as much or more in salary as their private sector counterparts, and they get the gold-plated benefit package on top of it. So this is a return to that kind of ideology of, it's a set it and forget it. We'll just give you the money, and it just takes all the work off of you, and it just unburdens you from having to worry about your own future because we've done it for you. Now, kudos need to be laid out there where kudos are due. They have taken out some of the things in this bill, because this is the first time we're seeing some of the specifics of what is being proposed. And one of the biggest cost factors that drove the first round of defined benefits programs was, of course, the cost of healthcare, because they just had no idea, especially in the late 90s, going into the early aughts, they had no idea what was going on with healthcare. The costs were just, doubling and tripling, and the actuarials they could not keep up. And that was one of the things that led to this multi-billion-dollar unfunded liability, is because they had not accounted for the cost of healthcare to skyrocket to the case of what it did. So one of the things that this bill does, which again, again, I need to give props where props are due. The new tier would not include health insurance for workers upon retirement, leaving them dependent on savings and Medicare once they stopped working. Employee contributions amounts could be adjusted by the board, the ARM board, if the stock market sees a downturn. So if the stock market sees a downturn, then there would be an increase because of the return. It's adjustable is what it's saying, which again, another good thing. Kudos for that. And it would allow the board to withhold inflation adjustments to retiree payments if the plan is less than 90% funded. I think all three of those are fantastic ideas. If this is the final form of the bill, then those three things definitely would put some real, harnesses and governors on the runaway growth of what a defined benefits plan could be. But I'm still not convinced that it's going to actually be better or save us money. I'm still not convinced that it won't increase, because they're going to offer this to every employee out there, including those who are on defined contributions right now. And I have seen no fiscal notes on any of this yet. I haven't even looked at that yet. We're gonna have to go down. We're gonna have to do a deep dive on this. But what really gets me is that it's this idea that somehow everybody else in the state, all the private citizens, all the private sector workers, we're basically on our own. I mean, we're lucky if our employer does a matching contribution to our 401k, right? I mean, we're lucky if that happens. But we're on our own for managing our own retirement. And we've got nobody to blame but ourselves, and I'm looking at myself on this, if I don't do it right. If you don't plan enough, if you look at it, I mean, if you reach retirement age and go, boy, I don't have enough to I should have checked it sooner. I should have been putting more away. I should have been living more within my means. I should have created a side hustle. I should have invested it in some other things. Maybe I should have changed my investments around. But to say that, well, the public employees, they're a special breed of cat and they need just a defined, that you just need to give them a lump sum every month no matter what. I mean, that's, first of all, it's insulting to everybody who's working in the private sector. I mean, it's good enough for us, but it's not good enough for you. You guys need the gold-plated thing. Second of all, there's no guarantee that it won't overrun, just like we've seen time and time and time again across the country with defined benefits. It overrun the system. And the fact that, again, we haven't seen any fiscal notes. The one in the House got, it got pushed through without it. They basically, the Josephson basically rolled the chair and hoodwinked the chair into getting it out. It didn't have a fiscal note attached to it. It's going to another committee now. I don't know if it's going to actually be seen. If it's not, that's fine with me. But I would like to see some actual hard numbers and have it analyzed. But I will say, again, credit where credit's due, that the removal of the healthcare component, the fact that they allow the ARM board to adjust the contribution amount if the market takes a turn, and allowing the board to withhold inflation adjustments if it's not fully funded, those are three good things in this bill. If it was to be able to make it all the way through, those three things would go a long way to stopping a lot of the runaway liability that we're seeing. I mean, we're still $7 billion, folks. We still owe $7 billion from a plan that was cut down 15 years ago. That's where we're at right now. All right, we got to go. Representative Ben Carpenter's up next. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Okay. Let me get caught up in the chat room here to see what you guys have to say. And we'll I'll get back to it here. Willie Keppel says Starlink is problematic. Second generation birds are going up. Yeah, I mean, that was been the cutout when things are cutting out. That's what I want to see. I want to see that some of that, the cutouts and the latency and the dropouts going on. Jim says on YouTube, you can't comment. Well, this comment on the screen right here is Willie, who's commented on YouTube. You can comment on YouTube. There might be something wrong from your end, Jim, because there's plenty of comments on YouTube right now. Is fiber down KGB? I don't think so. I don't think there is fiber down KGB. But I don't know. Do you know if the state has conducted an independent survey of its employees to really assess retention and hiring issues before we have any discussion about solutions, especially any solution proposed by a politician? Right. A lot of the times, from what I'm understanding, most people who leave jobs, it's not about retirement. It's about working environment, or it's about current base salary. So maybe that's something we need to, let's see. Government leads to learn to compete for workers. Giesel is a nurse practitioner. Yes. David, she didn't come to mind. Even the military no longer has a full defined benefits program, says Kevin. Yeah, I mean they've been sourcing away from that for years. 4 years. People are leaving because Alaska's economy is in a ditch. The legislators have absorbed all the money to promote bigger government, and they've canned the private sector, accepting large corporations' interests, large corporate interests. Yeah. I'm going to it. Robbie says, my biggest mistake was trusting government Social Security. Yeah, I mean, they've already said that. I mean, I'm not going to be eligible. I mean, I'm going to be eligible, but the whole system is going to run out of money right about the time that I hit the eligible age. So, oops. I contributed all these years and oops, sorry. Sucks to be you. Federal governments do not have a defined benefit plan as of 1986. The reason was it was unsustainable. All right, man, you guys have been verbose this morning. All right, let's get things ready and jump in. Ben Carpenter, I can see him in the green room. And we need to get things ready to rock and roll for the coming hour. So we'll go over here and get started. Good morning, sir. How are you?
I get myself unmuted here. I'm doing very well. Good morning.
Oh, well, thanks for coming in. Let me adjust you just slightly because you're loud and proud this morning. Let me pull you down just a little bit, and we'll try that again. Everything good down there?
Not. Good morning. Is it better sound now?
Yeah, a little bit better. I got it a little bit better. I feel like I'm too tall, though. I should get down here with you. I'm too tall. Get it up there. All right. So we all ready to dive into this? How are things been going down there in big Juneau town? The bubble, the terrarium of Juneau.
Yeah, staying busy. Fighting the socialist ideologies here.
Yeah, I know. I can't imagine. It must have been quite a shock to jump from the minority where you're scrambling around trying to find things to do and ways to kind of stick your nose into the business to you're in the majority now. Here's all your committees. Go. It must have been quite a change of pace.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's good to be busy, and it's good to be doing things that I want to do.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, you're looking good, feeling good, sounding good. Let's. I'll put you back into the green room, and we will hold back for just a minute, and we'll come back to you. Why did I lose my my background? I don't know why. Oh, there it is. Okay, I got it. Sorry. We'll be back to you here in just a minute. We're going to continue with Ben Carpenter, who is our guest representative down from the Peninsula, also chair of the Ways and Means Committee, which has been tasked this year with creating putting together some kind of long-term fiscal plan, which, as we said earlier, is in part being framed off of or utilizing components of the Fiscal Policy Working Group plan to try and inform that long-term plan, which I think is good. I think that is good. All right, down to the last minute here. Kevin McCabe, you're on the right track. What did Kevin say that I'm just looking back to see what Kevin said that maybe okay. I hate it that in my unified chat where I can see all the chats at once, I can't see the reply views. So sometimes you guys say something that I have absolutely no context for, and you're talking to somebody else, and I don't know which comment you're commenting on. But that's life. That's what all the people say. All right, we're going to jump back into it. Here we go. Please be sure to like and share if you haven't gone to YouTube yet. I'm sure Representative Carpenter has gone to YouTube and liked me on YouTube. If you haven't gone to YouTube yet, hit the like button or the subscribe button and ring the bell. Subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube. We'll get it all going on. Here we go, The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out themichaeldukesshow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
Sounds just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live world.
That's right, across the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or translator. It is The Michael Duke Show. Good morning and welcome to it. Thanks for coming in and joining us. Hour 2 of the big radio broadcast today for Thursday. And I should take that off the screen. We're going to be joined here right now, in fact, by our guest for today, who is Representative Ben Carpenter down there in the Nikiski Southern Peninsula area. He is the legislator for the House down there. He is also the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, getting ready to be in the he's in the majority now, first time around, getting ready to get some stuff done. And they have been tasked with a monumental job. That job is to create a long-term fiscal plan for the state to deal with all the problems that we're having right now. Ben Carpenter joins us this morning to discuss. Good morning, Representative.
Good morning. And I just have to tee this off to say that I've added one thing. I've taken the liberty to add one thing. A long-term fiscal plan has also got to address our economic growth.
Economic growth.
That was part of the messaging that was missed with the Fiscal Policy Working Group. You can't get to a solution, long-term solution in the state without addressing economic growth.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you can't disconnect. I mean, this is a big point that we've been making on the program lately. You cannot disconnect the public economy and the private economy. They've got to be intertwined. You've got to have economic growth in the private economy to be able to justify the works and the deeds of the public economy, right?
Yeah. And as you hear the conversations going on about defined benefits and BSA increases, there's no conversation that says, hey, do we have an economy that can pay for this? Because the obvious answer is no.
Right.
The only way we're going to pay for it is by taking the permanent fund dividend.
Right. Exactly. Well, let's get started on this path then, Representative. You just kind of laid out by adding one more thing. Let's take a look at this. Start me off fresh. Like, talk to me like I'm 5, as they say on the internet. Let's start off with this plan of the long-term fiscal plan. Where are we going from here?
Yeah, so exactly. So we started opened a can of worms last night by hearing one of the PFD bills that are before the House and are sitting in Ways and Means right now. And on the 6th of March, we will hear a few more bills, different ideas on how to solve the PFD problem. And so we're going to discuss it. And then, we're going to take public testimony on that on the 8th of March. And then on the 11th of March, we're going to have a conversation about spending limit. We got a couple spending limit bills that are before us. Okay, so those are two components of the Fiscal Policy Working Group recommendations of the report out that we're going to continue the conversation in Ways and Means.
Representative Ben Carpenter is our guest. Sorry, there I dropped out for a second. Representative, I mean, this has been a problem for years, right? I mean, this is not a new issue. I mean, we're facing a crisis right now, a fiscal crisis for sure. But the problem that we've had in this state for years, going back to that first payment in 1969, is that we've had no long-term plan. We're like, the money's there, we spend it. If the money's not there, we panic. When the money's there, we spend it. When the money's not there, we panic. It's this cycle of back and forth and everything else. There hasn't been any long-term fiscal plan to speak of beyond maybe the next election cycle, right?
Yeah, I guess I would say that the status quo, doing nothing, is kind of a plan. I mean, it's a real lazy plan, but there are members of the public and members of the body here that think that if we just keep going down the road that we're going and exhaust the PFD to government spending, and so that the results of that is that the entire amount of the POMV draw, the earnings from the permanent fund, are funding government. And that is the plan. That is the only plan that is in effect right now, is to just fund state government off of investment earnings from the permanent fund. I don't know if that includes a continuation of oil revenue for the state. That's kind of a separate but related conversation. But that is the long-term plan that some are positing as what's best for our state, right? Let's just spend all of the permanent fund earnings on state government, and you can see that. I mean, there's no stopping the appetite of state spending. You can look at the 06 to 2013 binge. You can look at what happened in the budget last year.
Right.
You can look at the bills and how they're being structured now, where we're setting aside a smaller PFD in order to get defined benefits and ERA BSA increases, right? That's the narrative that's been created. It's a socialist ideology to say we just need to have all of this money go to government spending, and we're not even going to talk about what it does to the economy or the private sector jobs and the people, because largely it doesn't really matter, right? It's all investment earnings. The people that are back home, they don't care.
Right.
I think this is ultimately why we have to have a PFD. You have to force a PFD to be paid, because otherwise government is going to grow at the size of the permanent fund and the people are not going to care about it.
Right.
So we're going to eventually get into a situation where our state is as large as the permanent fund, and oil revenues will grow your government.
Right. Well, and they want it. It's almost like they want it siloed, so it's not in control of the people. So it is in control of the political class, the special interests, the crony capitalists. I mean, that's kind of the thing. It's like we don't want to have to deal with the people, so we'll just take all the money from the permanent fund earnings themselves, and that way we don't have to fight over it anymore, and we can do what we want to do. But the problem with that is that, as you just pointed out, and as we've seen since statehood, this state has never seen a dollar that it didn't like to spend. And it didn't ever, think even beyond that. So my fear has always been that, yes, you're right. They'll take the permanent fund and they'll start drawing directly off and taking all the earnings and funding them into government every year directly off the permanent fund itself, plus the oil monies. And then my fear is it still won't be enough. And then they'll come back to us. And you saw this in the piece by Zach Fields earlier this week, this opinion piece. Alaska, we don't pay any taxes. We don't pay any taxes. And you can see the next morphing of that argument would be, well, all these other states pay taxes and you guys aren't paying your fair share. You aren't paying your way. And so now we need a state tax on top of it, because you should be paying your fair share for all this stuff that we're providing you.
Yeah. The government will consume all of the permanent fund earnings, and then it will come asking for more. That's just a fact of life. It's an economic reality. It's
the nature of government, right? I mean, that's the nature of government in and of itself.
The nature of government. Yeah. Yeah. And what really scares me is that we've got a situation now where some members say, hey, you know what? We just need to transfer all of the money of the earnings reserve into the corpus protected, because the legislature might spend it. So let's just get rid of the ERA, right? The ultimate goal is to protect the permanent fund, all right? But a 5% market value draw, 5%, that coupled with high inflation and low returns, year after year returns. There was a section of about 10 years where the permanent fund earnings didn't reach their own benchmark, right? So we have another 10 years where we have low returns from earnings of the permanent fund. And your 5% market value structure, the way that you set this up, will dip into the corpus of the permanent fund.
Right.
You will pay for BSA, you will pay for defined benefits, and you will pay for state government from the corpus of the permanent fund if you have high inflation and low returns.
Yeah.
We've got to find a way. The ERA is basically standing in the way right now, because if we were to draw too much money out for a 5% draw, there wouldn't be any money left in the ERA, and then you wouldn't have any more money to spend on government. And so that's a challenge for us, is how do we keep funding government when there's no money in the ERA, because we're taking too much out? Well, that's a good thing for us, because if we get rid of the ERA, then we'll just dip into the corpus. That's the reality of what's going to happen. Which,
quite honestly, I've been warning about for 15 years, because I said that is the target. The ultimate target is to be able to get their hands in the major cookie jar, which is the corpus of the fund. Because then if they had $80 billion to play with, well, then the sky's the limit. They could do all the pie in the sky things that they want to do.
Exactly it. So we're gonna have a conversation about long-term fiscal plan. We're gonna take the BSA increase and the defined benefits plan, and we're gonna model that out with current options that we're gonna be discussing on things that we could do, PFD solutions, constitutional solutions, or spending limit solutions, new revenue ideas. We're gonna model all of that to see how it relates to each other, because we're not talking about the relationship and the long-term impacts on any one of these single decisions. Your BSA conversation is being had in a vacuum of all of the other factors within state budget and long-term implications. Just
isn't that a
rhetoric-based fiscal policy?
Yeah, I mean, isn't that a reoccurring problem, though? I mean, the Fiscal Policy Working Group addressed that. They said with their, I think it's 8 different things, right, that they talked about. Is it 8, I think, that different things that they talked about? They said you can't take any one of these in isolation. It's got to be holistic. The plan that we're laying out includes all of these things: new oil taxes, some kind of maybe state revenue and a sales tax, putting the PFD into the Constitution, putting a spending cap in, all the things that you talked about, that this very separate group of people, with those on the far left, those on the far right, those in the middle, they all came together and unanimously said, we've got to do these things, and we can't do them one at a time. We have to do it holistically. The problem is they continue to try and take these things out in isolation and not tackle them head on. Like the spending cap, one of the criticisms from Representative Grow was, well, this is just one part of that plan. There's none of these other. Well, but I don't see Representative Grow proposing another part of the plan, so that you had all these legislators proposing these 6, 7, 8 different parts and bringing it together in one bill. I don't see that. That's part of the problem, right?
Yeah, and I don't know whether we can get to having everything in one bill. That might be too much of a hurdle. But we can whittle it down to a couple bills, a few bills, maybe 3 or 4 bills. The challenge is communicating how these all relate to each other in a plan, in a what they do, what the effect is on state government, on our budget system, on the politics within the building, right? If you're going to put a spending limit in place that limits spending at statutorily limits spending at a certain dollar figure, and then you give the legislature the ability to spend above that with a 2/3 vote, then you're setting yourself up for a situation like we have with the CBR vote at the end of the year. You always use that vote as leverage to get something done. So it's maybe a premature to have the conversation, but I think that some of the spending limit options that we have are setting ourselves up for a different political challenge if they were to pass than what we really realize.
Representative Ben Carpenter is our guest. We're coming up against the break. When we come back, I'd like for Representative Carpenter to give us a little bit of a refresher on the findings of the Fiscal Policy Working Group and how he's going to fold, first give us kind of the points, quick talking points on it, and then how we're going to fold that into a long-term plan for us here in the state of Alaska for our long-term fiscal plan. Representative Ben Carpenter is our guest. We're going to continue with him here in just a moment. The Michael Duke Show continues. Your home for common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Representative Ben Carpenter, our guest here on the program. Did he give a bill number? No, I don't think we've had a bill number discussed yet, Christine. We're still, I think they're still working through that. I mean, do you guys have a bill in process here, Ben, on this whole thing, or something that people can review, or are you still in the fact-finding process?
No, I've got several bills before Ways and Means right now. We just heard, let me see here, I'm looking at a list. We just heard HB 72, which is a permanent fund dividend bill. That's what we talked about last night. We've got another permanent fund dividend bill that's HB 90. HJR 7 and 8 are PFD bills. There's one other bill, HB 45, which is a PFD contribution bill. It's PFD related. It allows people to put their PFD or a portion of their PFD back to state government if they choose. We've got constitutional amendment legislation that we'll be talking about, and those are HJR 2 and HB 38. Those are the bills that are sitting in Ways and Means, and there'll be other bills coming forward that haven't arrived to us yet that we'll be talking about here shortly.
HB 45, we call that the Randy bill. So that if you want to turn your dividend back over to the state, you can do it. There's a mechanism for doing that, right? HB 45.
Right.
That's the Randy bill. Thank you, Randy, for
staying up or shut up.
Yeah, stay in the course. Stay in the course. We're in the break right now, Ben. So give me. I know that there's probably been some pushback on some of the things that you're doing, and of course, I find it ironic that the news media and the minority. Well, first of all, that the minority has kind of control or a foot in the door with the news media, because we see all this whining in the headlines about how they're so unhappy that the majority hasn't, put a plan together, that they haven't, they bemoan the lack of action on school funding, and they, all this kind of stuff. And I think, is it more of a case that they just don't like the direction you're taking and they call it not having a plan, or is it, give me a little bit of the feeling for the slapback that you're getting on this?
I was in the minority for 4 years. Where was the plan then?
Right, exactly. Well, that's the thing. This is what kills me. They keep going on and on about the BSA. It's been underfunded. It's been. You guys were in the majority for 6 years, and you didn't even really bring this up. Now, all of a sudden, it's a crisis point because somebody else is it. Oh, it's a crisis point now. I mean, you had the opportunity to open the BSA and to discuss it and did, and there were a few things that were done, but you never treated it like, oh, now that somebody else is in charge, it's a crisis because they're not dealing with it.
Yeah, well, I'm not too concerned, and I don't pay attention to what the press is saying out there. I mean, it happens, and then I hear about it, but it isn't influencing what I'm doing.
Right.
I know what my task is. I am to put together some sort of a options for a fiscal plan for the legislature to choose from. I can't force them to choose it, but I'm going to do my best to provide the options and what I think is good for the state and possible within the building. And that's what I'm going to do. And it takes time to do that. There's a lot of things going on down here, and it is a very monumental task to keep people focused on priorities. And if the fiscal plan is a priority, is solving the structural deficit that we have every year when oil is low, if that is a priority, then we're going to stay focused in Ways and Means, and I'll let whatever nonsense has happened outside the committee happen, and we're going to keep focused on this. And at the end, we'll have some plans or some options for people to choose from. And I would just say it takes time. Good legislation takes time. We can't rush through it. You see pieces of legislation that sit in the committee and are rushed out in a hurry. You ought to question that.
Right. Did you say, I got about 20 seconds here. Did you say that you guys are doing some fiscal analysis of both the BSA increase and the defined benefits? Are you guys breaking down?
Yeah. I'm sorry.
We'll hold up. The bell rules
Sounds
us
good.
today. Hold the line. Ben Carpenter, our guest. The Michael Duke Show continues. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Let's do it.
Public enema number one. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Yes, pain in the you-know-what. Hey, it's the Michael Duke Show. We are continuing now with Ben Carpenter, our guest on the program, representative down from the Southern Peninsula, who is also, of course, chair of the Ways and Means Committee, who has been tasked by the majority in the House with creating a long-term fiscal plan that can be pushed out for the rest of the legislature to go over and decide. And, of course, some of the framework, some of the base work of that comes out of the report and the plan that was produced by the Fiscal Policy Working Group, which I think we need a brief refresher on, Ben, of some of those points that they said that they needed, and then a description of how you're trying to fold some of those points into the overall plan.
Yeah, so I've got the Fiscal Policy Working Group report pulled up here. You can also, I think I've got it posted on my website from last year or maybe 2 years ago when it came out. bencarpenterpost.com. You can go there and find it. But, so first recommendation is a constitutional single account permanent fund structure with draws limited by a percent of market value draw. That's the 5% of PONV draw that is currently in statutes, as well as the old 21% of net earnings. So move to that model, right? Constitutional certainty for the PFD, meaning there's got to be a constitutional protection that the PFD does get paid. New PONV based formula, a healthy capital budget is also part of the recommendation. New revenues was part of the recommendation. Budget reductions was part of the recommendation. Spending limit reform and a transition period. Don't try to do this all in 1 year. We need some stability and some predictability in the economy. We need something that's resilient to fiscal stress. So it's got to be durable for the long term. And the last recommendation was the reform of the constitutional budget reserve. We owe $16 billion to the CBR, and there's a 3/4 vote that has to happen every year, and this causes problems within the legislature. So there was some feeling amongst the Fiscal Policy Working Group members that we needed to address that. So those, in a nutshell, real high level, and the headings on the recommendations are what the Fiscal Policy Working Group created. And in Ways and Means, I've just kind of summarized this to say that we've got to solve the PFD problem. We've got to address a constitutional spending limit, or there's no real way to put a statutory spending limit in place and have the appropriations process listen to it. So it's got to have some sort of constitutional teeth, right? And that's also what the Fiscal Policy Working Group recommended.
Right.
So then we talk about efficiencies and good governance. What can we put in place long term with management policies and how we communicate between the executive and the legislature that enables us to get to a better, leaner government? What does that look like is something that we're going to look at. We'll talk about budget reductions. We'll talk about new revenue sources, right? I'm sure we will see some tax bills. I'm sure that we will see, well, we've got the governor's bills that talk about carbon capture and carbon sequestration. And I'm skeptical on that right now.
Right.
It seems to be a case of what my parents told me: don't listen to get rich quick schemes.
Yeah, it's what my grandfather used to call the if come, right?
Yeah.
You've got income and you've got the if come, and it
Yeah.
seems like we're betting an awful lot on the if come on that for sure.
The reality in that regard is that some people in this world want to pay us money to do nothing with our trees or to put carbon dioxide down in the ground. And that's all that we would be doing. It's not like we're locking up the land, because that would be in the contract. We would never allow that arrangement to lock up our land that we couldn't do something with it in the future, right? There's consensus on that.
Right.
So the question is if you can control this so that we don't have any negatives, then do we take the quick money in the short term?
Right.
That's basically what it is. And I think that I'm going to do my best to communicate what the long-term implications are for following through with carbon plans. And there's obviously worldwide political implications here that have to be taken into consideration.
Absolutely. I think one of your key points is the fact about the constitutional protection of some of these things, because as you mentioned, a statutory spending cap has no teeth whatsoever. Even if you put in a percentage where it has to be a 3/4 vote or a 2/3 vote or whatever it is, I mean, it really doesn't matter, because the legislature has shown an utter disdain for statute for years. I mean, whether it's the 90-day limit, whether it's the PFD, they have just blatantly decided that they can go by it. These things have to have some constitutional teeth in them, because it's the only way that it will force the legislator to face the facts that they can't continue to spend more money than they take in and have it continue. Mathematically, math is hard, but arithmetic don't lie, right?
Yeah, Michael, it's just one peg in the board that needs to be put in place to help stabilize our state spending, the imbalance that we have, and to improve the conditions for economic growth in the state of Alaska. Nobody wants to come into the state of Alaska to, from a business perspective and invest, because we're not attractive. We're not attractive. We got the 9th highest corporate income tax rate in the nation.
Right.
So right off the bat, if you're somebody with wealth or means and you see an opportunity in the state, you're going to do an analysis that says, you know what, these conditions are just not good enough. The high cost of energy is a problem, and the outward migration of the population is a problem, and the poor results in this education system are a problem. Right?
That's why we were. That's why we were
all
ranked
of these are
49th now, or we ranked like 49th or 48th in business environment in the state of Alaska. I mean, we're down at the bottom of the pile.
That's it. And we're talking in this legislature right now, we're talking about BSA increases and defined benefits as if that's going to have a positive impact on economic growth. It won't. It's going to increase the cost of government to whoever the taxpayer is. And right now, that's the permanent fund, and it's oil companies and corporate interests. So we're headed the wrong direction. Continuing to grow and add burden to the taxpayers with policies for state government without setting conditions for economic growth is headed the wrong direction. It's short-sighted, and it is not what Alaskans are expecting the legislature.
We're talking, of course, with Ben Carpenter, who is the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. So, Ben, where are we at in the process right now? Walk us through, where we're at. We're a month into the legislative session now, just over a month, 5 weeks, something like that. Where are we in the process, and where do we go? What are the next steps, and how can citizens who are concerned about the fiscal prospects in the state and all the things we just talked about, business environment and everything else, how can we help? So it's a kind of a two-part question. But first, where are we in the process and where are we going?
Okay. So if you're asking where is the legislature, where is the House focused right now, I would have to say that the main thing that has to happen is pass a budget. And we are finishing up the process, the finance subcommittee process, where all of the members have an opportunity to kind of scrutinize the budget, the governor's budget. And here within the next couple of weeks, that process will conclude. And then the House Finance team will take up a committee substitute for the governor's budget, and they will discuss that budget. And that discussion will also include public testimony. So the next budget-related influence that the people have is participating in that public testimony period. And you can either call in during the period that is established. And having sat on finance for 4 years, I know that there'll be multiple days to be able. Well, there should be multiple days to be able to call in, but you can also email, and those emails get forwarded to the finance committee members. And so that's a way to influence. In Ways and Means, we're going to continue the long-term picture, and I like to think that the budget should be a reflection of the long-term plan that the legislature is going to put into place. So I'm hoping that the two kind of work together, and to the best of our ability, that's what we're going to do. But I'm going to have public testimony period within House Ways and Means to be able to do that, to hear from the public as to what their opinions are on the components of a fiscal plan. So the first opportunity for testimony in Ways and Means is going to be the 8th of March. And my Ways and Means committee meetings are being held at 6 p.m. Monday and Wednesday nights to be able to have people participate.
Yeah.
You get off work, you get dinner done, and then you can put us in the background, poke your finger in one eye, and listen to a boring conversation.
Well, but I mean, I think
important, right?
Well, you know what? I admire that, Ben, because I mean, how many times have I heard there's this important bill and we're going to take public testimony on it on a Tuesday at 1 p.m. And I'm like, whose boss is going to allow them to pop the phone up and sit there on hold waiting to testify or to hear the thing for 2 or 3 hours? Who's going to let them do that? I mean, that's just, I applaud you for moving the times on this of these meetings so that people can participate. I mean, that's a fantastic deal. It's obvious that you want that public participation.
Yeah, we're going to have a joint Ways and Means House Education Committee meeting. We're working the details out now, but we're going to have a conversation about the options that are being presented in education and how they play out in a long-term fiscal plan. But that's in the works. We're gonna think outside the box here and have a conversation that's a little bit broader than just one specific bill, and kind of see how it relates. So I also intend to have some public testimony opportunities on a weekend, on a Saturday morning probably,
right?
That will allow people to participate as well, because I think it's really important.
No, I think it is. I think the public participation is important. It's one of the reasons why one of the charter of changes is to change the venue for the legislature to move the session onto the road system, because people, I think, deserve to have that participation in person. I think they deserve to come in and be able to stand in their legislator's office and say, we need to do this, we need to do that. I think that that's important, and I think that's one of the things that we're missing in our current system, is that we don't have the ability, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, if you're a legislator and you're sitting there hearing testimony on a bill and it's just over the phone, I mean, your eyes have glazed over, you can't, but if the people are standing in front of you, looking at you, pointing at you, talking to you directly, that's a powerful, powerful thing.
Yeah, I agree. I wish that it was in the power of the legislature. And I say that it's in the power, but it's not in the political will. Wish it was in the political will of the legislature to move to the road system. I think that we would find better results if that were the case, but it's just not possible.
Politically feasible, right? I know and there's a lot of pressure and pushback because some of those people they're happy in the bubble. They're happy only being seen by special interests and nonprofits and lobbyists and those people who non-governmental agencies and things like that, who are being paid essentially to go down there and do that. A lot of times with government money, to go down and beg for more government money. It's pretty astonishing. We got one final segment coming up with Representative Ben Carpenter, who's the chair of the House Ways and Means Committee. We're going to continue with him here in just a second, and so we will we'll continue. How about that? We'll do that right after this. I was going to look at the time, but I don't want to push the clock, so we will continue. One final segment. We'll let Representative Carpenter wrap up. What can we do? How can we participate? How can we make it better? And I also want to talk about the timeline on this, because I have a feeling this is going to be more than a single year, if you know what I mean. We'll continue with more. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Ha, nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
If you can't have fun while you're doing it, why do it at all? That's what I say. That's what I say. Representative Ben Carpenter comes in. I just can't imagine the sea change that it's been, Ben, since you got there the first time, and now where you're at today. Give us some behind the scenes baseball here. What are some of your biggest surprises as you've taken over now in the majority after being in the minority for so long, and kind of, you're that kid in the glass with your nose stuck on the glass looking in. Give us some of the biggest surprises and some of the biggest positives.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I'm surprised by much at this point, but I guess some of the positives, right? We've got a bunch of new people, both in my caucus and just in the legislature in general, and things run a lot slower when you're new and don't know for sure what's going on. So some of the I don't know, what you might think is things aren't happening fast enough is just due to the fact that we're learning how to. We're not even 60 days into the session for some people who this is their first session, and they're now majority. So there's a steep learning curve,
right?
And we're doing our best. Now, the huge positive is that there is drama behind the scenes, but there's not the amount of drama that has been in the last 4 years I've been. We are doing a much better job than I think behind the scenes on managing and solving interpersonal relationship problems and just management issues of moving forward and governing than what I saw happen in the last couple of years. So that I don't know that I'm surprised by that, but that's what I'm most proud of, that we are able to work through our differences and work together. And of course, we've only really passed one bill, and we haven't really got into the hard discussions yet, but we've set a very good foundation for being able to weather the storms that are coming with the hard discussion. So I think that's what I'm proud of, our team and our folks down here, that we're able to do that.
Well, and I think it's good that we have a fresh batch of legislators who get a taste of this to begin with and are going to want to work together more in the future. If there's questions of organization or leadership down the road, this gives them a taste of being able to actually have an effect and do that and want to work with the people that they're working with now.
Yeah, I agree. It is time. And I don't think we're quite there yet. There are still folks in the legislature who are resistant to change. Whatever that change is, they're just resistant. And it may just take, you asked about timeline issues, and there's probably 1% chance that we get an agreement on a fiscal plan session, right? It likely goes into next session. Next session's a harder session to get anything like that done because it's election year. So I guess I take a look at when did we do the fiscal policy working group, right? That was July of 21. And now this is the first session of the next legislature. So 2 years later, And we're just now really being able to have a conversation about the fiscal policy working group recommendations. So whatever
Right.
comes out of this in the first session of this legislature may have to be taken up in the first session of the next legislature.
Well, and thank
So
goodness you actually got around to it because, I mean, I was just so shocked that I think that the fiscal policy working group recommendations were mentioned, I think, once on the floor during after the recommendations were released. I think it was mentioned in passing one time on the floor. Never had a deeper analysis, never had a report, never had it was like, thanks for your service, we'll see you later, and then they moved on. And so it's good to see that that's coming out now and that we still have that in our back pocket to try and help inform what we're doing now. It to me, it just seemed like, well, the business as usual crowd has once again decided that they don't want to change gears or do anything else. They want to keep doing what they're doing.
let me remind you that the fiscal policy working group came together on June 28th, 2021. You know what happens in a couple of days after June 28th?
Yeah, the budget ends.
The budget ends, which means the government shuts down because we didn't have a budget agreement. The only reason that we got an agreement for a fiscal policy working group was to prevent the government shutdown. That's the only reason. For some people, that's the only reason that there was even an agreement for it. So any report or recommendations that come out of it for those people was
Meaningless, right?
meaningless.
It
Yeah.
was
Blow your
just,
nose with it.
yeah, political theater. That's all it was. Look what I did. All thing, I avoided the shutdown, and hey, it was nice of them. Let me pat them on the head and tell them good work, and then we're going to go off and do it. Which again was so shocking to me because of the makeup of the group, the philosophical and political makeup of the group. The fact that they came out unanimously should have said something to someone, but it didn't. And but now we're back on track. All right, so we're gonna we're gonna talk about the timeline. We're gonna talk about solutions. We're about ready to jump into it. We're 10 seconds out. Ben, hold the line. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio. Here we go, folks. Please like and share on Facebook and subscribe and ring the bell on YouTube if you haven't. Here we go. Continuing now with Representative Ben Carpenter, who is a representative from the Southern Peninsula and chair of the Ways and Means Committee, who's been tasked with creating a long-term fiscal plan for the state of Alaska. Now, the first thing I asked about, or actually the second thing, we're going to go second thing first, was a timeline. And in fact, I think you said it during the break here. There's a 1% chance that the long-term fiscal plan is going to be reviewed, approved, and come out of this session as it's going on.
I'm probably going to regret saying that, Michael.
1%, yeah. But I mean, we all know that this is a long-term thing. I mean, they're already talking about some of these things. Even Gary Stevens admitted that the defined benefits package portions of it is probably going to take 2 years. We know these are long-term things that can't usually be done in one go-round. So what are we thinking? Is it going to be this year and next year for the end of this session, and then maybe into the next session that we, what kind of timeline do you think we're looking at for a full fiscal policy working group type long-term fiscal plan in the state of Alaska? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm no political wizard, right? I'm doing the best that I can down here, but I recognize that in my limited time in the legislature that the second session of the legislature is all about reelection. And so taking chances on a long-term fiscal plan, on options for a long-term fiscal plan during an election season is probably just not going to happen. I can't say that for sure, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to try, but it's going to take a concerted effort and intestinal fortitude by a lot of people to make something happen during that season. And if conditions are of such that the economy is still tanking and we don't have good economics and the families in the state are still struggling, then maybe a better fiscal policy does emerge from even during an election season. But it's likely, I'm just spitballing here, it's likely that just like we had to have an initial conversation with the fiscal policy working group in the summer of 21, and now it's the first session of the next legislature where we're actually getting to talk about it, and put forward action items, right? The fiscal policy working group didn't have bills that came out of it for people to actually take action on. Now we're going to have bills that we can take action on, and they may have to, the concepts may have to hold over until the first session of the legislature. I would prefer that not happen, because there's a lot of unknowns there, and you have to start over from scratch with all the bills. But that's
yeah, and that it creates a secondary problem, because now then maybe we have more new players. Now that could be an opportunity or an obstacle. I don't know which one it could be, because it might encourage people to ask questions. It might be, that might be the good thing during that election season, to ask, do you support the fiscal policy working group, or do you support the Ways and Means Committee long-term fiscal plan? Because we'll have it out by then, right? We should have all the details. And maybe that's a hammer that we can use to when the election cycle comes back around, to ask these people, do you want to send the same group of people back that are in there right now? Maybe people who are holding it up, or maybe people who are championing it. Who do you want to send back? And it may be another opportunity for us to sculpt the legislature a little bit more into a fiscally sound organization, instead of, a bunch of spendthrifts.
Yeah. Well, if the next election could focus on solutions instead of rhetoric, instead of criticism, then that would be a positive thing for the state. I would love to go into an election season saying, hey, these are the options we have for a fiscal plan. Whoever you elect is going to enable or make it harder for this plan to get put together. And maybe that's the conversation that needs to happen during the next election season. So anyway, we just keep moving forward, because the legislative process was never intended to be a quick process.
Right. Well, and I think that's good. I think this is the plus here, is that not only you're thinking about a long-term fiscal plan, now we're talking in what we just talked about. That's a long-term political plan, to understand that we've got to take the long game approach to this. We've got to take that long. We didn't get here all in one fell swoop with one single legislature that just, spent us into oblivion. This has been a long, slow slog and process. We need to, take that long-term approach to the political aspect of it as well. We should be planning on what's going to be happening in the next election cycle already. Who should we be supporting? Who are we watching? What questions are we going to be asking? And this is all going to be based on their track record over the next 2 years.
Absolutely. And political campaigns for election are all, you have to be able to discern between the rhetoric, what people are just saying. And largely, the easiest way to do that is to have something concrete that you can ask the question, right? Do you support X, Y, or Z? And if you don't support X, Y, or Z, which could be the fiscal policy working group idea, right? The concept of coming together to solve the long-term stability of the state, or improve it. If you don't support that, you don't support the options that are on the table, then maybe I don't want to have you in the legislature this term.
Right.
Maybe it's not the right time for you to be here.
No, I agree. I think it's going to be important, and I think we need to start thinking in those long-term phases as we go through it. So, down to the last 4 minutes here or so, Representative Carpenter. So, the listeners out there, people who are listening to this, people who are tired of the arguments over the PFD and all these other things, what can we do? What can we do to help the House majority, the legislature as a whole, our own communities? How can we help make this long-term fiscal plan a reality?
Well, the easy answer is to say participate in the process, but that's a little cliche. We always say that. I think the harder piece of this, and it's hard for legislators, it's going to be hard for the general public, is to know exactly what you want. And that may sound a little shallow, but it is a hard question to answer. What do you really want? Do you want, is the thing that you want, you really, really, really want a large PFD? Do you want your government to just stay, keep your hands out of the permanent fund earnings and create a stable way to spend that or use it? Do you want a growing economy? Is the only thing you want is a higher spending for teachers, better teacher pay? What is it that you really want? And I boil this down, and I think of the families in my district. And by the way, I'm in the northern Kenai Peninsula. Sarah Vance is in the southern Kenai Peninsula.
I apologize. You're right.
That's okay. But what my families in my community want is economic opportunity. And that's a broad range. But if that's what you really want, then communicate that to the legislature, because the processes that are in place down here are not normally focused on economic opportunity. They're focused on what do we do with our government spending to benefit government. So if you want economic opportunity, you've got to communicate that to your legislators. And I'm just going out on a limb here to say that that's probably what most people want to see is better economic opportunities. And our state is, in all the categories of where you measure economic opportunity, our state is headed in the wrong direction. And if that message is not being sent to all of the legislators, that is what we want. Focus on economic opportunity, and all of the other problems kind of fall into place when we have a growing economy, when things are better economically. If that's not your main focus, then tell your legislator that too. But you got to know what you really, really want, and it matters.
It's the first time I ever thought I would hear Ben Carpenter quote the Spice Girls. Tell me what you want, what you really, really want. That's it. It's what it is. But I mean, I think that's it. I think they've got to know, right? I mean, we've got to know what you really want. And I agree with you. I think the majority of Alaskans, regardless of political affiliation, really want to see economic growth in the state of Alaska. Now, the question is that government's responsibility, or is it the private sector's, or is it the free market's responsibility? You and I are on the same page, I think, in agreeing that it's the free market's responsibility. We need to make sure that we are supporting and electing people who follow that philosophy so that we don't try and decouple the public and private economy. They've got to work hand in hand. One has got to be dependent on the other, and we've got to let the free market do its thing. Last 60 seconds here, Ben.
Yeah, fiscal policy working group, I think, had people who are thinking about the free market economy. In the legislature, we're not really. So you hit the nail on the head. We can't allow the free market economy to be decoupled from what's happening in the legislature, and that is the current trajectory we are on. That's the battle.
I couldn't agree more. Representative Ben Carpenter, our guest for today here on the Michael Duke Show. Your next meeting is on the 8th of March. Is that correct?
No, next meeting's on the 6th. It's next Monday. So it's Mondays and Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
Okay, Mondays, Wednesdays, 6 p.m. You can go to Gavel to Gavel. You can watch them. You're taking public testimony?
On the 8th.
On the 8th. Okay, that was where the 8th came from. The public testimony for those bills on the 8th, and we're going to be talking about PFDs and the fiscal policy plans and more. This is the guy to watch, folks, right here. He's trying to come up with a plan and a solution. He needs our support. We should be calling in and talking with him. Thank you so much, Ben, for coming on board. As always, appreciate you. Appreciate you bringing Donna back and getting that information in the legislature as well. We didn't talk about that, but thank you for bringing Donna back onto the program. Appreciate you coming in.
You're welcome. Thank you, Michael. It's good to talk as always.
Out of time, folks. Be kind, love one another, live well. All right, Ben, this is the time where I give you, if there's one final bite at the apple, something we didn't cover, a question I didn't ask, or anything else, it's all you, baby.
I just want to let people know that I have not dropped the ball on the grand jury issue. It's separate from Ways and Means, but it is very close to my heart, and I am working on it. I've got an assessment that I'm going to send to a constitutional attorney to draw up legislation to deal with this issue. But I did an assessment on the court rule changes, Supreme Court Order 1993, and we are literally looking at the Supreme Court putting rules in place that violate statute. 100%. That's what happened. So how we go about that and solving that problem in the divided legislature is tricky, but I'm committed to doing so.
Well, and I would argue
got a lot on my plate.
Yeah, I would argue not just violating statute; they're violating. They're changing a constitutional provision. They're trying to do it from the bench.
Yeah, no doubt. The Constitution and the statements from our founding fathers, who drew up the Constitution, were very clear that the grand jury's focus was supposed to be on preventing corruption within our government, right? And to the extent that the Supreme Court order makes it harder for the grand jury to investigate its own government is counter constitutional. And
yeah,
anyway, yeah, it's a big issue. But you know what? People don't know where the grand jury authority comes from.
right.
If you ask them which part of the Constitution does it come from, is it the judiciary, the executive, or the legislative portion of the Constitution? Well, it's neither. It doesn't come from any of that. It comes from Article 1. Where we get our life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We get our freedom of press and the freedom of all of the individual freedoms. Grand jury's right in there.
Right.
It is an individual freedom that is not. It's not a function of either any branch of government.
Right.
So
it's an individual.
We the people have got to understand it.
Well, I'm hoping that we can shine some more light on this. I myself have pointed a couple of investigative journalists from Reason Magazine at this. So I'm hoping that Reason might take a look at this and shed some light on this, because this is a shocking development. This whole thing with the Supreme Court coming down, writing their own rules outside of the committee that's supposed to do it, promulgating them in a surprise manner, telling them that they can't investigate that. People should be shocked by that. They should be outraged by it. And yeah,
but people don't know what a grand jury is.
Yeah.
How many people have served on a grand jury? I don't know. I mean, it's kind of one of those things that is behind the scenes, happens in the behind closed doors, and people just don't really know much about it. But there's plenty of stuff being written about it for the government, statutes that govern it, and court rules that govern it. And all you have to do is read the two and realize that what the court is doing is in violation of what the statute says, and the statute trumps the court rule. So we've got a problem that we have to correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm hoping that we can shine some light on it. Like I said, that's why I'm reaching out to some of the people that I know and see if we can get some exposure on that and get things squared away. All right. Well,
have them call my office.
I will. I gave him your name already. I just didn't give him direct contact. So we'll see if we can get something on that as well. Representative Ben Carpenter, thank you so much for coming on board. As always, it's a pleasure to speak with you. And we will hopefully talk with you again soon here in a couple 3 weeks.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Appreciate you coming on board. All right, folks, that does it for today. We are ready to pull the plug and get things squared away. Tomorrow is Firearms Friday. How did we get to Friday so fast? It's insane. It's just crazy. Don't forget to check out the Common Sense Corps if you want to support us. Support the show for as little as a cup of coffee a month. You can help support the show. We appreciate all your help and concern on that. We will return tomorrow with more goodness. Commonsensical goodness is what we call it. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Be kind, love one another, and live well. We'll see you later. Have a great day.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Welcome.